Oh, looks like I'm... Alright, there it goes. Well, as I promised last week, I am back for a 2-night engagement. Again, there's no one here. For anyone who, for those people who are tuning in after the fact, this is part 1 of 2 of a 2005 visit I took to the New York City Transit Museum, and an additional trip on the Metro North New Haven line. So I'm just going to get started here in a second. Try not to think of the geography of this too much. The trip covers me traveling from South Jersey to New York City, and then there's a jump, and then suddenly I'm in New Haven, and then I'm going back to New York City. These are all just part of an extended trip to see the girl I was dating at the time. Can't remember if I took her to the Transit Museum or not, or if I went with one of my New York City friends. But it starts with an all transit trip to New York City. At this point, my mom was still working, so no, it would have been the summer. Anyway, I didn't want to have her drive. She had no reason to drive me up to Hamilton. I didn't have a car of my own to use at this time, so I just got dropped off the 36th Street thing in the morning, and somehow the trip up to New York City via that wasn't as bad as it is today. I don't know. Maybe it just didn't feel as bad. But let me see if we got any people here. Looks like the chat's working too. All right, so I'm just going to start going. So this is the RiverLINE 36th Street station. The RiverLINE was brand new at this point. It's probably its second year of operation. And also what were not necessarily brand new, but were kind of new, were these NS C40-9s. This one being 9280. So 9280 probably came from the late 90s. So it was probably a good maybe five years. They were still being delivered up and through 2004. So this is waiting at the Pavonia Yard extension tracks, or running tracks, that were built next to the RiverLINE. Usually start a little slow here and wait for people to show up. And it wasn't just one, it was a pair. So we have 9280 and 9266. So these are pretty evenly matched. It's a pretty common occurrence. At least I still see it in certain situations today. But it's NS seems to have train masters that like pairing sister units together. Although not all the time, especially with duplicate numbers, yeah, but I mean, in this case. I don't know what was on the way out at this point. I'm not a big NS person. They didn't really show up until after the Conrail merger. Anyway, here's an interesting thing that looks like a PR. I'm sure I've mentioned this in other streams, but for those of you who don't know, this is looks like. Well, it is a PRR dwarf, but is not a typical signal. It is actually part of the RiverLINE light rail intrusion detection system. I know I've mentioned this before. It's part of the FRA waiver to operate near freight. They had to put in an intrusion detection system in case there's a freight derailment that impinges on the RiverLINE tracks. So between where it goes up in Camden and the end of the sort of the side-by-side line at Del Air, they will occasionally have these IDS signals. So I think it's there's a red slash in one direction and a white slash in the other, and they're labeled with IDS. Meanwhile, I don't remember what interlocking this is. I should probably go and see if I have some in my my signaling zone. I don't know my RiverLINE interlockings very well, but I have a few of them written down, like that one. I suspect it's CP17. Let's see. if it'll pull up. Could also be CP3. Oh, come on. So CP17. Oh, that's CP. Okay, never mind. So that's CP4. Yeah, you can see the IDS. I'm not sure what those applied to. Maybe that was before they put in the new IDS signals. Possibly with a red light. This is probably brand new or something. CP4. So I guess that's CP3 then. Yep, there you go. Not sure if that's track 1 or track 2. RiverLINE's had a bunch of changes over the days. I'm not sure exactly which ones are still in effect in terms of weirdo signage. SJ. Oh, sorry that took a little longer than I had expected to, but again, hopefully people have shown up by this time. We can see. Not really, just me, it looks like. So yeah, that's the 1-bit in South Jersey. Now we skip ahead to New York City. This is the L terminal in Canarsie, and I don't know. Again, I don't know how I got. Like, why am I here? I guess I was riding the L, but I don't know why I have no other photos. It was just. I mean, I didn't take a ton of photos when I was used to be riding. Yeah, one of the issues was that. So I actually know what signal this is. That's the 537 signal. So yeah, just, my camera didn't take good low light photos, so I just didn't really bother. It was just sort of a thing I did for fun. 537 NYCS. This had the L line was undergoing its general resignaling in anticipation of CBTC. I don't think it got the CBTC necessarily everywhere, or at least not around like the terminals and stuff. Anyway, the L had some of the oldest signaling on the NYCTA, and then it got this general resignaling plan that came with brand spank new union switch and signal target signals, which are just super beautiful. The E resignaling, not the current one, but the previous one around Queens Plaza, also had US&S equipment. Now that they've been they were bought by with the Italian merger, with the Italians wanted to rebrand, and now they're owned by Hitachi. There's a lot more rebranding. Here we have just the trip stop associated with it. This was always electric, but not. It was the L would have definitely been a GRS signaled line because it was BMT. Here we have a front view of the 537 signal. Yeah, I can. I don't know if I should. Nah, I'm not gonna cut everybody out of this. Gives it some. Note the anti-graffiti barbed wire there. And for anyone who might doubt this is the Canarsie terminal, yes, those are Redbirds, but those are school cars. So the red boards have all been retired at this point, but they still kept the law. They still had those as training cars. They weren't. They're not like. I don't think that they were they're not like fix them training cars. They literally are classrooms. They had steps going up to them. Not sure if you learned how to do internal technology, but it was definitely some kind of classroom. Not sure if those are still there or not. So here we have signal 537 displaying a stop and proceed. Okay, now we go to the main theme of the day, which is going to be the NYCTA Transit Museum. This is located in the old Court Square station, which was a terminal station in Brooklyn that basically every service pattern decided to avoid, and then they turned it into a museum. Strange. They seem to have nobody here. I got some people, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just gonna cut. So this is the NYCTA Transit Museum does have a variety of equipment from non-New York City Subway sources. Surprisingly, I mean it is the I think it's like the MTA Transit Museum. This, for example, is the old control console for the Triborough Bridge lift span. Triborough Bridge, to get to the third borough, has sort of a triangular. I mean, has a sort of a bastard stepchild. Running from, I'm not sure which one that is, but the one over the Harlem is sort of the odd duck out there with a lift span. Although maybe the Bronx to the Bronx River is the small one. Now I've labeled all this stuff as NYCTA Museum in the past, so I'm just going to keep doing that. Yeah, that was definitely an original piece of equipment there. It completely looks like the 30s. Trying to do some timed exposures here. One of the things I used to do occasionally for artistic purposes. Some dials. Drawbridges, in theory, could be interesting in their operation. But for all the videos I've looked through, it's generally not really that interesting. The control, the power levers mainly only have 2 speeds, a coast and a brake. So it's pretty straightforward operation. It's even less interesting than like an elevator controller, because that an elevator can get going really going well. You can tell this is not really my cup of tea, or not really my forte, so I'm just cutting through it best I can. Back in the day, I probably was unable. I did not know how to perspective correct this, which I'm doing right now. Which is, anytime you get a weirdo sign, you definitely always want to perspective correct it. It always makes it better. Yeah, I mean, I just did a, that looks bad for a variety of reasons, but even if you get a little bit of oddball aspect ratio, Having those corners match up is just always better. And it usually does a good job of cutting out a lot of the border junk too. What makes the major issue is that it's when you don't perspective correct it, it's very difficult to crop properly. You're gonna have oddball angles and whatnot. So I say always perspective correct it. People really aren't going to notice the sort of the squished letters. Here we have some New Haven catenarian signs. Can't really and don't perspective correct anything that's not suited for it. Like nothing that's a square or a rectangle signage. Don't try it. That does not help. So the good news is today I did find the original name stuff. For museums, I tend to put them in their own category. Because they're stuffed or I like to call the stuff stuffed. It's not really useful to put it in the it's not quite useful to put it in the mainstream of my like searching through and finding. Like putting an old Conrail locomotive into the Conrail locomotive thing. If it's in a museum, often it's better that I'd only be looking for it if I was I mainly look for that stuff in context of the museum. Okay. That's our first bunch there. So this is going to be a two-parter. Total thing is going to be, I think it's going to be two blobs of 36 photos. So it's going to be, that's going to be pretty quick each day, so it's not going to drag on. Did people not get the notification? This has happened before. But I think I shut the... Okay, hold on a second. I don't want to get feedback here, so I'm going to be quiet. Well, there you go. That's the problem. It's not announcing the... It's not announcing the thing. Oh, that's the problem. It's unlisted. Ah, fuck. Derp. Again, this is an art. Sorry for anyone watching this before. The issue was that the previous interface would auto change that. So when I save this, I need to make sure I go and change it to unlisted to take the unedited video down until I can edit and put a description on. But it looks like it unfortunately jeez, like changed everything. Okay. Sorry about that. Hopefully people will get notified now that it's up. Okay. There we go. Whoops. I might be switching to a different stream for streaming doohickey, although XSplit seems to be behaving a little bit better. So, anywho. So while this comically interesting traffic sign, traffic light, I mean, you're getting the old hoot of Oh, it's an old. Fun fact: these two lamp traffic lights were in service in the Rockaways into the 2000s. I never got a picture of one. I never really went out there to take a picture of one. I don't know when they went away, and then, for all I know, they could still be there. But these existed on the Rockaways, up sometime into the 2000s. I think Kevin Walsh in Forgotten New York did a piece on them. For anyone who doesn't know, the way these do yellow is yellow and red. Green and red are displayed at the same time. So the light is green, then the red light will turn on, and then the green light will go off. Actually, I think that's really elegant, and I kind of prefer it. Because it's like, hey, it's green, but you got the red coming. Okay, now we have... At the risk of wasting time, I'm wondering if I should go and... Here we go. Here's the Forgotten New York page on them. They were there in 1999. Looks like they went away in 1999. So they apparently lasted into the around 2004. So it looks like they're all gone now. It's got to be somewhere in the country that they exist. But anyway, I'm just killing time for people to show up. Maybe they didn't get the notification. Probably gonna be doing this to myself. Ugh. In fact, I bet that the notification did not go out because I didn't restart the stream. But that would kind of be disruptive to the recording, so... Oh, well, wait, I can tell... One of my fans, have him on IM here, so let me just go bug him. All right, let us continue. So here we go. And this might be something I deleted, but we will see. Now, so this is the end door of an R15. In fact, if I go the best, so I went ahead and did a little research trying to figure out. That's not what I needed. Where's the one that I needed? That's not the one I needed. Here we go. New York City Subway car. So what are these? These are some sort of form of Redbird. A division, 100 made. Yeah, that's the interesting thing that I kind of miss about the NYCTA. Back in the day, from all the way up until like the 1980s. They would buy 100 cars here, 200 cars there, so you had much more variety. Now they buy 1,000 of one, and you just it's just terrible and monolithic. So these went from 1950 to 1984. Which one was saved? 6239. It was for first prototype air conditioners. That's why this one's special. It's the first one with air conditioners. So, in the interest of not having all these duplicate file names, I'm probably just going to name them the same as I did back in the day. Whatever. They charge for the Transit Museum, so I don't have any real plans to get back there. Here's more R15. What's interesting, it has the porthole side door windows, same as the R11s, which we'll get to later. Somewhat padded seats. Something else you don't see in today's Subway fleet. Although it's nice to have the stab-ready flooring. I have a feeling that the NYCTA is constitutionally incapable of making a good gritty transit movie these days. I don't know how the hell they did it back in the day. Got legit strap hanging straps. Wow. There you go for transit advertisements. Transit advertisements promoting NATO. Probably why you didn't have probably to, if everybody thinks that QAnon and crap is new today, there's a lot of right-wing wacko nut jobs back in the 50s that thought every international agreement was the first step on the road to serfdom, and fluoride was mind control. Only difference is they didn't have their own news network. This is clearly a different car. We will see which one it is. This is the R12. So I'm going to double check that. It's because it could maybe be like an R7A or something. Here we go. Oh, there it is. I think I've seen this one on the museum train, but I mean the holiday train, but I'm not entirely sure. Another American Car and Foundry, order of 100 cars, single units. Yeah, these are all things you don't get today. Single units, small orders. Oh my God. We need to get like a railfan governor or president, I swear, because then they could basically, through very, secret public policy mechanisms, bring back better rolling stock. This is car 5760, two-tone gray. The car is operational, runs on the nostalgia train. Okay. That's why I've seen it. I have a video. If you go to my, not now, but if you go to my YouTube channel in general, I did a walkthrough of the nostalgia train a number of years ago. Not the nostalgia. Yeah, it is the nostalgia train. This is, an R36. Oh wow! It's not like I didn't ride one of those like a year before. This one does look like it's been rejuvenated or repainted to match the colors. But I was on Twitter and I had people who were like, "Oh, Robert Moses, when he did the fair in '64, he didn't connect it to transit." And I'm like, "What do you mean? The Willets Point LIRR and transit station were right at the front gates. They bought new equipment to serve it." But they're like, "Well, it wasn't as well connected as 1939." I'm like, "Yes, because, buses exist and cars. So it was, but it wasn't, it wasn't like the Jones Beach low bridges trying to keep the poor people out." One interesting thing about the R36s is that they were a very transitional car. They were carbon steel, but they had air conditioning, and they had the windows that you would see in the later R40, R42s, etc. The sort of not the drop sash square windows, the rounded sort of sealed ones. And the joke was, the joke was that if New York had gotten the 2012 Olympics, they would have had. We called it that. We were predicting. We were trying to project ahead. It was going to be the R36 WF was the one that was for the World Fair that had the advanced features, and we thought that they'd be up to the R212 O, and O would be Olympics, and it would be like the last stainless steel car before they transitioned to carbon fiber, but it would have better other things. But the thing is, we weren't off. There is an R212, I think, but it's just not for the Olympics. Let's see if we have anybody else in the thing. Oops, that's not the one. There it is. Oh, I think we're getting some people here. Yep. Again, I'm sorry. The new whatchamacallit I'm using. When I saved the video last time, it saved the recording as public. When I changed that recording to unlisted, the next time I started the stream, it started off the video as unlisted, and it didn't advertise it at all. So I do apologize for that. Tomorrow will be the way better group of photos. So you're not missing too much. If you're wondering what's up with some of these odd camera angles, it's because I'm using parts of the train to get timed exposures for the low light level. I don't think that's the person I was with. I forget who I was with, but I don't know that person, so I don't think it was them. But that's why there's all these sort of weird, like today I just roll in with my my cell phone, and it would be great, and it would look great, and you wouldn't have any lighting problems. And if there was lighting problems, I could just use night sight, but. Back in 2005 with my 3 megapixel, the legendary 3 megapixel digital camera, I had to set it on things and expose it for, see, this is what happens on handhold. It's just absolute trash. Blurry and soft and grainy and, you just couldn't do it. Didn't have the low light performance. Yeah, there it is. This is the other one, okay. The previous car... I don't really say anything about it. This here, and the next one here, which is soft. These are all wooden, what they call gate cars. Instead of having automatic side doors, you had end doors with conductors who would open and close the sort of the side gate, the accordion side gates. Very labor intensive, but people's lives were generally worth spit back in 1908, so it was worthwhile. All these cars are wood, I think. This is a Q car. Let me see. I was looking through the transit museums. I gotta find that. Here we go. BRT. This is the BMTQ. This is a Q. This is wood, and that Brooklyn elevated car, the gate car, was also wood. The main reason that the elevateds were torn down was they could not support the weight of the all-steel cars that were used in the subway. It's an important distinction in New York City. comparing New York to Chicago or even to Philadelphia, that New York does not have elevateds, or it doesn't anymore. It used to, but it doesn't anymore. It has elevated subways, which are different. If you go to Chicago and you see how lightly built the L is there, the cars are 51 feet, the stations are all made of wood. The track has the third. It's so narrow they can't have the traditional third rail with a cover. It's got to be the overrunning third rail. There's like no structure on it because it's lightly built. Now it's not quite as light as the New York City ones. Those went up in the like 1890s. But the major thing is everything that is still all the New York City elevated subways were either built intentionally or they were strengthened to support the weight of steel cars and larger cars. So, it's like I said, it's an important distinction when people are when you're there and they're like, well, why did they destroy the L's? They still have L's. It's like they're different. You know, the 4 train in the Bronx, the 1-9 up in Upper Manhattan, the 6, the 7. Those are all the structure on them are all really are at a different level than what used to be the L's. Boston Orange Line that used to go down to Dudley Square it was a traditional L. Lots of wood, not a lot of structure to it, and over the decades they just wore out. Phillies was the last. I mean, a lot of the Chicago ones are being replaced with concrete structured stuff. And the Philly Market Street L also got recently replaced, within the last decade got replaced with a concrete structure. This is an IRT low V car. The low V, you can make the joke that, they're like, why would they want to run them on like 120 volts? The low Vs mean that the engineers, so the high V cars work like a trolley. You literally had 600 volt traction current going through the controller stand in the operator's consoles. And because of how that works, the only way to multiple unit was to have 600 volt jumpers between the cars. They weren't always 600 volts, but you had to have line voltage go from the first third rail through the motorman's controller in the first car, and then that was the voltage that would control the speed, and that had to be train lined with hot jumpers. Not very safe. The low V cars had a newer type of motor controller with a cam control unit, and then low V control signals that would operate the cam controller in every car. So that's why those are called low Vs. They do not operate at some sort of lower voltage. And I lost my place. 1 second. There it is. Next one's going to be an R30. Okay, whoop, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to delete a bunch. Bloop. Yep. This is going to be the last bunch for today, by the way. Probably. Well, we'll see where I end up. I might go a few more, try to get through all these subway cars, and then I'll do the Metro North stuff tomorrow. This is an R30. The R30s can best be thought of. They were the last carbon, just like the IRT R36WFs were the last carbon steel car on the A division. These are the last carbon steel cars on the B division, which is IND and BMT, the bigger later ones. These, let me pull up the Wikipedia article on these again. Let me just see when these are built. Okay, these are 60-62. The R36WF's around 64. It's about the same time that they go with the 600 strong R32 order on the B division. and then from there it's just stainless steel for everybody. But the A division wouldn't see another order until the R62s of 1980-81. Again, you can tell. Remember, I pointed out the R36s, the WF cars, the World Series cars. They had those modern-looking windows. These had sort of like square school bus drop sash windows. It's nice that you could open them up. Probably a good way to lose your arm. But hey, they trusted people back in the day not to fucking hurt themselves. A bunch of R30s made their way out to California. So a lot of times when you see New York City subway cars, there are R30s that are permanent. There's like, it'll tell me how many there are. A bunch of these are around. Somewhere they firefighting, retirement. Yeah, I forget where I saw it, but oh, here you go. Bakar was previously been filming Mojave Desert. I don't know. I had heard that some R30s were taken out to California and used as props. I'd have to find out what's up with that. Could be a different model. But you saw them in Seinfeld. I think the Die Hard ones were the ones that those were R30s. Anyway, this is. I'm glad I have all these old names. Oh, this is just an opposite. Is this more R30? Nah, this can't be. It's not the R11. Huh. I think this is this is an R27. That's not good. Now those are all scrapped. I'm not sure which car that is, because I clearly mislabeled it. Oh, here. I guess it's just another R30? Nah, it's... Oh, here you go. R16. Oh, it's an R16. Interesting. Okay, there it is. So these are like these are a transition between the original R19 cars with the clear story windows and the later like Redbird fleet R30s. How many were built? 204 preserved. Okay. So sorry about that. I had to figure out what this guy was. These were used up until 1987. Yeah, I think the IND, they tried to get rid of the painted cars by the end of the 80s, and they kind of retired them a little early, and they were leading to some equipment shortages. Like they probably should have waited to retire the R30s. So here we finally get to my favorite. So the R32s, while they were the first major production order of stainless steel cars, the original Bud did a prototype of 10 cars, initially the R11, and then rebuilt in the R34 class to make them compatible with other stuff. There were 10 of them to make one train. It was called the $1 Million Train because everything cost, each car cost $100,000. I'm not sure if they're. Let me go to the thing here to see if they were married or single units. Huh? Looks like it's actually let's see. They're all single units. So this just shows the cab of the R30. Note that despite being all new in stainless steel, they still had the old style door controls. For those of you who don't know, up through I don't know the 60s, whatever one had the inside door controls, a conductor would stand between the cars to would lean out and hold on to those grips to open the cars. It was incredibly dangerous, but hey, there you go. Why not? They still do it for the nostalgia train trips. It's really wild. I got some good video of it. Also in the channel. Yeah, NYCTA is very conservative in its design, which isn't that surprising. Like when they tried to go with those new Rockwell trucks on the R46s, I mean they just didn't work, and it was a massive problem. So the NYCTA generally feels that it sort of knows its unique operating circumstances and doesn't want to get too far out ahead of the state of the art. The NYCTA also, another issue is they also do a lot of their stuff in-house. Like they can maintain their old interlocking machines. They can maintain their own signals. They can rebuild the switches that the old Model 4 switch machines. Redo the windings, pretty much rebuild them from whatever they need. So if some of these decisions of let's keep using older technology is probably predicated on the fact that they have the infrastructure to maintain stuff in house. So maybe they probably were in a position, if there was accidents, they might have been able to fabricate the carbon steel, the riveted carbon steel components, but they would have had no way to fabricate the shot welding. Now today, I know that like the folks down at Patco have a donor car for scrap for patches of the sheet, the stainless steel. But I'm not sure the NYCTA could have supported that back when they were doing their thing. I'm getting all sorts of pictures of this car because this is the neatest one they had. Another interesting thing, these end doors, the crescent moon, these are designed to be opened. The trains had no air conditioning, so in the summer, all the doors would, along the entire length of these end doors would be open, so while it was moving, it would get a breeze through the entire length of the train. We have the conductor window here. So, just remember, whenever you have something of like, why'd they do that? Just remember that there are often reasons. You might not necessarily agree with them, but they're often reasons. So, Keep asking questions until you find something that sounds like a good reason. Although sometimes people internalize their reasons. But I've generally found that most people are rational, even if they don't want to admit what they're doing. So here we have the Museum's BMT triplex. Triplexes were a 3-car set that were articulated, or maybe they're a pair with articulation. If it was a 3, let me just see. If the triplex means 3 cars or 3 trucks. Yeah, so it says 3-section articulated, so that implies that it was 4 trucks and 2 pivot sections. All right, just checking. Note the wicker/rattan seats. I remember hearing someone was like, "Oh yeah, the cars, the seats are made of wicker and the floor was concrete," and I just thought it was one of those stories you hear from people who walked up hills both ways. But nope, they were accurate. The seats are made of wicker and the floor is made of concrete. It's a low density, lightweight concrete. And by wicker, it's not like a wicker cheesy go to Pier 1 Imports type of wicker. It's like a cane. It's called, I think it's rattan, and it was covered over with a lacquer, so it was New York proof. Yeah, okay, yeah, this is clearly there are 2 pivots. Sort of very advanced for its time. The BMT was doing a lot of interesting innovation before it got taken over by the city. Again, I guess the city just wanted to sort of standardize on things. The other thing that BMT has is that it almost saved the L's. If it had been able to, I'm not sure what got in the way. If it was World War II or the Depression, they were just on the cusp of replacing their wooden L stock with these really lightweight, all metal, articulated train sets, like 6 or 8 car train sets. And they bought like a couple, like the Green Hornet. They bought a bunch. And something got in their way of being able to buy it. Probably the Depression. And then when the 50s rolled around, you had all these wooden cars. The L's are rickety. No one likes the L's. Oh, the business, they're dangerous. They're an eyesore. And they ripped them all down. But if they had new rolling stock in them, if the rolling stock had been purchased in the 30s or the 40s, completely replacing the wooden cars, it is highly likely that we would have seen that New York would have been full of the L lines today. So these are just pictures of the triplexes showing the various pivot zones and stuff. It's pretty neat. Again, the pivots look like they would totally eat a kid's fingers alive, and you would never be able to do it today in the way that they did it. But it's still it's sort of nice to live in a world where there's responsibility. But on the same thing, when you had 6 kids, remember when I said people weren't dumb? It's not that people are crybabies today. It's that they're not having 6 kids and 2 of them are expendable. So when you only have 1 kid, you can't afford to have his fingers all chopped off in the pivot section of a New York City subway car. All right, I'm going to do a couple more here just to get to the end of these the New York City Transit Museum trains here. I didn't quite make a good cut point. Uh-oh. I might have gone over there. I'm missing one. Oh, no, that's the one. I got one more to do. This crummy picture of the end of the door of a R7A. I think the R7As were the prototype R10s. The R10s being the first... Oh, let me check this. I was told this story at one point. 1937 is now the... okay. That's just an additional contract. R7A car 1575 was the prototype R10. The R10 being first post-war, 400 strong, and I thought they had air conditioning, or maybe not. But they were the first ones that had like nice lighting and looked somewhat modern. But this is this 1575? It's got to be, because they don't have any others. Maybe, I'm assuming that it had to have gone through a rehabilitation. Yeah, they repainted the floor. It looks a lot nicer now. All right, that's gonna be it for today. I'm just gonna zap that last picture. Let's see if we have any pictures. Sorry for the announcement issue. Hope anyone's still here. So tomorrow we're gonna have a great day. Same time, and I'm gonna be covering the. Oops, what's going on here? Oh, yeah, it didn't delete everything that needs to be deleted. So tomorrow we're going to be covering the preserved Court Street interlocking tower, some R42 stuff, and a trip on the New Haven line. So that's going to be really fun. And thanks for tuning in. And I apologize for the thing. Again, look for it at 10 o'clock. If something else gets screwed up, it's going to be at 10, almost certainly. Okay? So it might be a little early, it might be a little later, but I should be able to get that in right at 10. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and if you've missed it, it'll appear on the channel in a bunch of weeks, because I don't like putting these as headline videos, so I got to find some other stuff to bury them. All right, I'll see.